Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Carlos Alcaraz versus Andrey Rublev, ATP Finals 2023, round robin. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Alcaraz gets his first ever win at the ATP Finals. He beats Andrey Rublev in straight sets, a match that wasn't very close after the first eight or so games. Easy holds up until 4-all, and then after that, it was kind of clear who the better player was. Game in and game out. It was Alcaraz. So we can start with him in the analysis. Definitely, definitely upped his game compared to what we saw in the Zverev match. Not that I think he was terrible against Zverev, but looked more comfortable here. And it was a couple of notches up, which is kind of to be expected given what he said after the match, that the conditions were really tough to get used to and were kind of jarring considering the fact that it's way faster than any other conditions that you play on pretty much all year. The only thing I might compare it to would be like Stuttgart or Halle in the lead up to Wimbledon on the grass season. Queens, which Alcaraz won, is also quite fast, but it's especially when you're on indoor hard courts and you've been playing on indoor hard courts or hard courts in general, and suddenly the courts are much slicker. You have altitude, you have fast tennis balls. All of these things seem to just come together in Turin, and it's an adjustment. It takes some getting used to. But one thing that you can never accuse Alcaraz of is having a bad attitude about it, even in conditions which he clearly doesn't like. Like, he'd prefer this to be slower, obviously. He's pretty much said as much. But he's not going to say, screw it, this sucks, and have a bad attitude about it. He's going to try to figure it out. And that's what he did in this match. He was very positive emotionally, and that was good to see. Plus, improvements compared to the Zverev match. All those attack errors from the middle of the court with his forehand, they were pretty much gone. I didn't really see that in this match. And when I did, it was usually, he was down in a return game or something. None of them really came up behind his serve, which is preferable. Off the forehand, 10 winners to 6 unforced errors for the match. Really good ratio. Another thing, adjustment or an improvement from the Zverev match is he barely hit drop shots in this match. If you watch that analysis that I did of Alcaraz Zverev, I kind of did a big thing on how fast hard courts, especially ones that aren't particularly low bouncing, where I feel like this court's kind of in the middle, maybe medium, but maybe kind of low bouncing. Regardless of how you assess that aspect of it, fast hard courts are the worst conditions for drop shots. So I suggested maybe just don't hit as many if you're Alcaraz. Go against your natural instinct to use that shot frequently. He seemed to follow that line of thinking or that line of advice in this match. Changing the subject, talking about, I think, a pattern that's been pretty significant for Alcaraz is the main concern coming in to this tournament, knowing how fast the conditions are going to be. The worry is that Alcaraz was not going to get nearly as many cheap points as his opponents were in these conditions. That hasn't really played out. And in this match, it was Rublev who had that issue. He got way more free points than Andrey Rublev. Total serves unreturned. Not just first serves, total serves. Alcaraz, 51%. Rublev, 32%. If you make it just first serves, Alcaraz, 61%. Rublev, 39%. So he dominated that category. If you look at the Medvedev match, Rublev-Medvedev, it was a similar thing. Medvedev, 38% serves, total serves unreturned. Rublev, 20%. And the takeaways there are, one, Alcaraz actually got more free points against Rublev than Medvedev did. And that's kind of impressive because nobody puts Alcaraz's first serve in the same category as Medvedev's. But against a common opponent here, Alcaraz actually outperformed in this statistic. And then another thing, to harken back to from Alcaraz's perspective is this is the second straight match where you look at Alcaraz's cheap point output or unreturned serve output and you say, it's pretty good, because Alcaraz was at 45% first serves unreturned against Zverev, which is a good number. So the thought coming into the tournament that Alcaraz was going to have an issue here, that his serve was not going to get him free points, it's not how it's played out, which is great news for Carlitos. Now the ultimate test comes against Medvedev, because there's nobody, even including Djokovic, there's nobody who's actually tougher to get unreturned serves off of than Daniil Medvedev. So we'll see what happens there. But for Rublev, I said in the preview, I don't know, there are some returns in play issues that have popped up against big servers. And in conditions that kind of make everybody a big server, how might that affect Andrey? That concern has played out because Rublev has been really dominated in this stat, the unreturned serve stat, twice in a row, which is going to be a big deal in Turin. You're not going to hear me talk about this as much on clay, where usually it's like one guy gets 30% unreturned, the other guy gets maybe 20% unreturned. So it's like, okay, serve's mostly coming back and we don't really have to talk about this stat. But in Turin, yeah, I'm pretty much going to bring it up most matches because it's that important. Beyond the serve, the first strike is kind of how you can look at it. So wherever it comes, if it comes on the first serve, great. If it comes on the second serve or the second serve return or the first forehand, great. But the key in Turin is that you're getting that first strike in. And another big issue for Rublev in this match, and a big gain for Alcaraz, was that on the Rublev second serve points, it was mostly Alcaraz getting the first strike in with the aggressive second return. In the first set, especially through the first four Rublev service holds, Andrey was making all his first serves, and he actually ended the first set 78% first serves made, and that kept it close. But it just felt like as soon as Rublev missed first serves, that's kind of where he would get exposed, because there were a lot of common threads when Rublev was struggling to hold serve. The first was missed forehands. The second was Alcaraz making aggressive returns that gave Rublev pretty much no chance, especially second serve on the deuce side, where he would just kind of kick at tee and Alcaraz would hit that backhand inside in second serve return. He would do that really well generally. Second serve average speed. Alcaraz is at 100 miles per hour. That's kind of where you need to be. Rublev was at 91 miles per hour. Now, that's better than Rublev used to be. But we have to be able to say that Rublev has improved his second serve and also still be able to say it's still gettable, or it's still maybe not average to above average for a top 10 player. It's still probably slightly below average. And that's an issue in these conditions more than it is in slower conditions. If it was a little bit slower, Rublev probably just wouldn't look quite as rushed off of the aggressive second return. Where on that third shot in this match, he was more often than not in huge trouble, either not able to make that third shot at all, or in some cases not even being able to touch the aggressive second return. Another thing, going back to kind of expectation versus reality, is that given Rublev's pace of play, I guess the one thing that you would think maybe he would be able to do is rush Alcaraz with his pace and kind of diminish Alcaraz's defense. That didn't play out. Alcaraz did a great job absorbing the pace. I thought his defense was very tough. There weren't a lot of balls that I think Alcaraz failed to neutralize that were doable. So the defense was really good. Other than that, Rublev just seems a little bit off. He went pretty dark now in both matches after losing the opening sets. There were moments in this match where his footwork just wasn't as sharp, and that's kind of rare for Rublev. Usually that's mental. Like, he's not somebody who gets sloppy with his footwork all that often, but he missed a lot of first forehands that got himself into trouble, where it seemed like he didn't get himself in the right position. And I don't know, it just seemed, especially in the second set, but also in the 5-all game where Alcaraz broke in the first set. And it just seemed like maybe the intensity and the way he was competing wasn't quite as good as it usually is for Rublev. I don't know what's going on. He's kind of shown some signs that maybe he's sick, like popping his ears a little bit and coughing a little bit. So he seems a little bit off. And this was a little bit listless from him and also a level raise from Alcaraz. And you put those two things together, you get a match that wasn't very close. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.